Welcome back to the channel, guys. In today's video, we're going to be showing you how we made a bed. We're going to be giving you some tips and tricks on how to use the pocket hole screws. We're also going to be showing you another little tip that will help you so that you can get this entire bed made out of one sheet of plywood, a handful of 2x4s, and then also, if you guys have or know of anybody that has kids or grandkids, this thing would make an awesome toy box, plus a bed for a kid as well. So let's get to the video. The whole goal of this video is we're going to make a bed that's going to cost you less than some of the premium cots that you could go out and buy. It's also going to give us a ton of storage. We're going to make this bed roughly 18 inches tall, which is a good seating height. We're going to make it a little bit longer than normal so that we got extra storage, and then that'll also be some kind of bonus room down at the end for Buster. I'm going to show you what we bought at Lowe's. We bought one sheet of the plywood. The plywood is roughly 3/8, almost ½ inch thick. It's done in millimeters, but just say roughly ½ inch. It is the good grade of plywood. You could get by with the construction grade. It'd be a little bit cheaper. But the way we're going to build this, we're only going to need one sheet of plywood. That'll cover the side and make our top for the bed. And then also a handful of 2x4s, roughly 8 of them is all you're going to need. We're going to start out by cutting 5 2x4s right at 82 inches. That's how long the frame of the bed is going to be. And then we're going to cut the plywood just a little bit longer than that so that we have some overlap. So start out with cutting the 5 2x4s, and you may be asking yourself, why are we cutting 5? Guys, I'm going to explain that to you as we get further along in the video, but go ahead and cut 5 of them, 82 inches long. The next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be cutting 6 2x4s, 26 inches long. We're going to set them to the side, and then we're going to cut 6 more 2x4s right at 12 inches even. The next thing that you're going to see me doing in the video is we're going to run over here. I do not want the rounded edges of the 2x4, so we're going to run all these through the table saw. We're going to run them through one time and cut the one side off. You're only cutting about 1/4 inch of the 2x4 off, and then after you run all of the boards through, we're going to flip them over. We're going to move our fence over a little bit on our saw, and then we're going to cut the other side off. If you guys are using lattice or like making stuff out of lattice, now you've got a bunch of pieces of lattice for free. The next thing we're going to do after we get done running all this through the table saw is we're going to go over there and we're going to get our little Craig jig out. This is something else that I've showed you guys how to make. If you decide you want to make one, there'll be a link in the description down below. But we're going to drill out the holes for the pocket holes on the 6 12-inch pieces. After you get those drilled out with the Craig jig, you're going to see me setting this up on the assembly table, and we're going to start putting the screws in. Here's one of the tips or tricks that I can tell you from years of working with the pocket hole screws and making these little frames like this. I go ahead, after I use the pocket hole clamps that hold your two pieces together, I use a regular big clamp to go ahead and tighten that up. Every now and again when you're trying to run one of the screws in, it'll push your board out of whack. It'll make it to where it's not square or whatever else. That's your next tip by using these screws. Not all these screws, when they come from the factory, have the proper head, so make sure that you're putting the screw on your bit first to make sure the head isn't janky. And then I only do one screw on each side. That way if something moves when you're putting the screw in, you can pull that screw out, then use the other side that's clean, clamp it up a little bit tighter, whatever you need to do to make your adjustments so that it's all square when you're done. We're going to go ahead and we're going to build both sides of this frame. So you're going to end up using 3 of the boards. You got your 2 long boards, and then you got your 3 support boards, and just kind of split that in the middle. Since this was 82 inches, I put that center board right at the 41-inch mark and just screwed it in that way. The next thing we're going to do, you're going to see me using that 5th board, because we cut 5 of them. You got 5 long boards. The next thing you're going to see me doing is I went ahead and I cut a tiny piece of the plywood off of the plywood that we're going to be using for the top, and you're going to see me using that plywood as a spacer. That way that when you go to put the top on, it's going to be flush. This will make more sense in a little bit when I show you how we put the top on and put the hinges in, because you're going to put the hinges one side into the 2x4 that's you're making flush right now. We're going to screw that in with just regular screws. I did go ahead and pre-drill all these because, again, we're working with pine, and pine is a softwood. Sometimes you can split it. The pocket hole screws that you can buy from the store, whether it be Lowe's or wherever you're getting it at, it doesn't matter. They've got a coarse thread and a fine thread. That coarse thread is for your soft woods like pine and plywood, and then the other thread is for your hardwoods. You'll notice in this video I'm using the one that is designed for the softwoods. Those are the screws that we're going to be using throughout. So after you get this top, which is your 5th piece, screwed on to the outside edge of your other frame, we're going to take both these frames out, set it up in the trailer. And it was a good thing that I did this, because I'd forgot the inside corner of the trailer has actually got a piece of trim in there so that it's on a 45. So while I had it out there, I just went ahead and used a handsaw, cut that out of 45. That way we don't have clearance issues lining up the bed towards the end of the trailer where I want it to be mounted permanently. Also, if you're going to screw this in to the floor of your trailer, which I would suggest doing, this is a good time while you've got your Kreg jig out, go ahead and drill the holes in the sides down at the bottom of your frame so that you can screw it into the plywood floor of your trailer. I only use 6 screws. I got 2 at each end and then 2 in the middle. You can do it however you want, but I feel like that's going to be plenty just to hold the bed to keep it from moving while you're traveling. I did that both on the inside frame and the outside frame. Once we get the 2 frames placed inside the trailer, I did clamp some clamps to the bottom of the one that's going to be on the inside of the trailer. That way it'll hold it up straight, and that's where I get my final measurement. My final measurement that I'm looking for here is I want it 26 inches overall, and that's going to be the outside edge to the outside edge. I wanted it 26 inches, so I got this set up using the squares that I've got clamped to the frame. I got a proper measurement then. What the measurement ended up being for us in our build is 19 7/8. So we're going to go back into the shop and cut them 24-inch boards that we've already kind of pre-cut. We're going to cut them down to 19 7/8. We're going to do the same thing with the Kreg jig. We're going to drill out both ends, 2 screw holes on each end, and then we're going to bring the frame back into the shop and we're going to screw these 19 7/8. That's going to be your cross members for the top and the bottom. Now, one thing I did do on this is I didn't want any cross members in the middle of this bed because we're going to have it screwed down to the plywood. It's not going to move. So I only put 1 on each end. And then your other 4 pieces, I'm going to spread them out. They're roughly 21 inches apart going across the top. That's going to be plenty of support for Buster and me. I weigh roughly 200 pounds. He's 265 pounds. And that's going to be plenty of support so that your plywood isn't bowing or dipping. After we get this all clamped together, and again, you're going to notice I'm going to be using some extra clamps here so that we don't have any of the pieces moving around while we're trying to screw it together. It should also be noted that we glued all these pieces along with the screws. That I probably should have said at the beginning of the video, but if you're going to watch this before you build it, just remember you want to glue all these pieces as you go. You don't need an excess amount of glue. We're just using the number 2 Type Bond. If you wanted, you could do the number 3. The number 3 is waterproof. This is going to be inside the camper, so I didn't need that extra expense. Now then, after we got the bed frame and we got the rails and you got your supports all screwed together, you've got a good solid frame. We're going to carry that back out to the trailer, and then we're going to slide it into position. You're not going to see me screwing it down into the floor, but basically you're going to see me getting it into position. And then from there, we're going to come back into the shop. That top piece, since we've got that overlap, I only need to cut that top piece of the plywood 24 inches wide. You're going to see me using a couple of little tools that I've made so that you can make a good long straight cut using your circular saw. I've got a video on how we made them. It's going to be several years back, guys, but if you want to watch that video, I teach you how to make them. It almost works like a 0 clearance on your table saw so that you're not getting a bunch of chip out. If you're worried about the chip out, put a line of tape down your cut line, and then that way you shouldn't have any chip out on either side. So we're going to cut the top, we're going to take it out there, we're going to fit it in place, and then I'm going to just lightly cut with a handsaw a couple of little spaces just big enough for the hinges to go in. We're going to screw the hinges to that top, which would be your board number 5 on your frame, because now we've got that flush with the plywood. That makes a nice spot for you to go ahead and screw your hinges in. I have built this without hinges in the past, and I'll tell you, it's kind of a pain in the rear, because what ends up happening is you're trying to open that lid up and it will shift on you, the plywood shifts on you, and then it's kind of a pain in the rear. So what I did on this time, I had a couple of just cheap hinges laying around in the shop, went ahead and used them, screwed that into the top. That other half of your plywood, now you've got just pull your measurement, it should be roughly 18 inches. Pull your measurement, double check that, cut that using that same little tool that we made to make a straight line when you're using your circular saw. Cut that. I use 6 screws to screw that in. If you guys are wanting any kind of holes in the side of this, I do have a camper, and it was a pickup camper build out that I did last year or the year before, I don't remember now, but I'll put a link down below. You could actually cut some cubby holes using a router with a frame that you could make up just using scrap wood. I show you how to do that in the other camper pickup video build that we did. Like I say, it was roughly 2 years ago. Now then, that's going to be it, guys. This is a real quick, easy, simple build. If you like this video and you felt like you got any valuable information out of it, please consider hitting that like button down below. Again, if you know somebody that's got small kids or they're trying to build out a little camper themselves, share this video with them. I hope that they can get some useful information out of it. Again, I hope you all have a blessed week, and let's get outside and make something happen.